Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor
and his cousin
and their friend
gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared, and my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. This episode covers select games from week 1 of the 2022 college football season. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, go do that. Jake, point your finger up to the sky. It'll be right there in that corner. Yeah. Somewhere in that area. Yep. There. Yep. Somewhere over there. Yep. You can watch episode 1. Yeah. We covered the first handful of games. We're going to cover at the very end. We're going to cover a couple other line movements and added plays from some of those, but we got a whole bunch of new games to talk about here today. And in case you're new, I built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every FBS college football game, and information along with each team's power rating and a graded A, B, or C pick, either now or coming later, for every game this week. Is available in the Google Sheet linked in the show's description. That doesn't mean that I recommend you do the same. It's our goal in this episode to share key information about this week's games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why the model or we like or don't like a certain play in order for you to come up with picks that you are comfortable with. I never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with us or against us before investing your hard-earned money. And as I go through the plays, remember there are no locks in gambling, so what I'll give you are loves, likes, and leans to indicate my confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. Cousin Jared will also be utilizing a weighted unit scale this college football season. And as always, please remember that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say it'll be profitable each and every day, that isn't a possible reality for any gambler. We're back again with more college football action. Cousin Jared, how you been?
I've been doing pretty well, doing some additional research as the week's gone on, watching these line movements, hoping, to catch some more value this week. But I have to say, excited to have Jake on, and that the viewers don't have to just listen to me drone on and on and on and on and on and on.
I feel like we talked a lot in that first episode. This one won't be as long, I think. We kind of talked about this after we record it. Maybe the later on episodes in the week won't be as much. The first one's just we have so much to say, and then hopefully we'll kind of spare you some of that time. But there's just so much to talk about. Kicking off the week, we're just so excited.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's always great that first round. That just
yeah. And I think, Jake, that falls on you. We've already talked a lot, so hopefully this episode, you have some things to say.
I'll try to bring some new points here, but at least there's new games on the list.
Yeah, there's new games. We'll have other things to say. Well, before we get to today's show, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you are yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and the only way is you turn notifications on to ensure you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Hit us up on Twitter or drop a comment if you're on YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. Let's get to the games. All lines courtesy of BetOnline and current as of the time of this recording. Some of these move quickly. We had a couple we already talked about from that first episode that already moved a lot. Have the notifications on, subscribe listen right away. Like I said then, the lines tend to move the direction the model goes like 2 out of 3 times. It doesn't always, but it tends to go that direction. You already saw it with Michigan. I said I love that 27. I thought it should be 31. It's at 31 now. So I was like, wow, that worked out.
Yeah, I nailed that one.
Exactly. Nailed that one. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the line goes the other direction, but I mean, for the most part, it goes that way. So we'll try to get these up as soon as possible, and you can get ahead of that movement and get a better number. But we got some Thursday games here to talk about. Ball State at Tennessee. Tennessee's a 35-point favorite. Total is 68. Another game I think we're all going to watch because it's Thursday and there's nothing happening. Jake's a Tennessee fan, so he'll obviously be watching. I mean, I don't even know what's cousin Jared. Do you have words on this game? Because I mean,
I want to hear what Jake has to say, and then maybe I can respond to that. But no, off the top of my head, there's nothing that strikes me strongly about this game.
Tennessee should be good, right, Jake?
Yes, I'm excited for this year. It's been a while since I've been able to be excited coming into a year. Yeah, like Hendon Hooker looks great. We brought back Cedric Tillman. Those two are just an incredible. The line should be better than it was last year if we can stay healthy. Defense, if we can stay healthy, we should be good. But I'm actually going towards the under here. I don't think Ball State's got the offense to score the points, and I don't think Tennessee's going to just try to put up a stupid number with it being up there around 68. I think they're going to be fine. Like last year playing Bowling Green out of the same conference at a very similar team, the score was 36. So 68 number. and it's going to take a little bit to get some of these pieces going, and because it's a lot of new weapons for Tennessee besides Tillman and Hooker, and I mean Small's back, but kind of thin at the running back with the Whitehead injury. So I don't think they're going to push it too much. I think you're going to get a little bit of everybody in this game, and that under 68 is looking really good.
So Jake, I have one question, and I'll get to you because Jared. Jake, did you find a quarterback who knows not to run out of bounds after the game has ended?
Somehow that guy is still on the roster. I'm very confused. But that wasn't Hooker. That was Milton.
There you go. At least it's not the starter, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Milton started the year last year. Everybody forgets that. I mean, Hendon Hooker put up those crazy numbers and didn't even play played. I don't think he played every game. But he definitely didn't start every game. So giving him a full year with a whole spring as a starter, it should look really good for him.
Yeah. Cousin Jared, do you have any response? I mean, other than I think your response is like, "Ooh, under." I like it, right? I feel like that's where you're going with this.
Yeah, like something about the first to cast stones and like glass houses and something like that. So I'm never going to fault somebody for playing the under ever. What I would say is this does feel similar to me, the A&M's first game last season against Kent State, where you got. Kent State was really good on offense, but like A&M was just going to dominate in the trenches. It was going to be really tough for the opposing offense to get going. And then, to his point, I mean, what does Tennessee have to prove in this game, right? Like, who cares? Get the backups in, run some clock in the second half.
Don't get hurt. Like, get the reps, get the guys in, but also mix and match personnel so you can see what's going on. Get guys a lot of reps. I mean, there's a lot of. You shouldn't be playing all your starters 60 minutes in this one.
Yes. So with all that being said, though, I played more than a couple of Tennessee unders last year, and it never worked out for me. Absolutely ever. So this is one that I'm sitting out on just because like I still have some scars from Tennessee last year, I think. So I think this is a good play. I think it makes sense. I just can't bring myself to do it.
I get it. But I mean, I like they got Pittsburgh coming up the next week, so I don't think they're going to show all the toys. They're not going to show everything. They want to get out of there healthy because that's a big run there. Because I think if I remember correctly, it's Pittsburgh at LSU and then Florida at home. So I think there might be another game in between there. I don't know.
It's still a tough start.
Yeah, it's a tough start. So it's just
important games to win. I mean, talking about LSU. Maybe not as good as normal LSU, but like a game you need to win, and then Florida obviously big for divisional purposes. So some big games. The dog's barking, which is perfect. I'm on the dog here. Jake, I hope you're right about the under because the under correlates with the dog here. We talked about correlated parlays. This might be a good one to do because if Ball State covers or if it goes under, the other one is much more likely to hit because the way this goes awry is if Tennessee scores 60 points themselves. Neither of us really think that can happen. 35, in my opinion, is way too many points. The model says 27.4. Tennessee can obviously run away with this game if they want to. I'm just not sure that they want to. And on top of that, there are a lot more ways that this game finishes where Ball State wins than not. Like Tennessee can win by 35 and we push. 34, 31, 28, 27, 24. There's a lot of numbers where you're like, all those are reasonable outcomes and nobody would bat an eye. The reasonable outcomes where Tennessee covers this number is 38, 41, 42, but beyond that, it gets unreasonable. So just counting on your hands how many reasonable ways this game ends. I mean, Ball State's not a terrible team. And like you said, Tennessee's not probably going to, have any desire to run it up. I think 35 is way too many points. Minus 105, even better. It's an A-grade play for me at this number. It's an A-grade play not at this number, but gosh, I love 35. I think go ahead and lock that in because 35 could easily happen and we've got that push protection. So I love this number. And if that's right, and again, it's correlated with Jake's underplay, so those hopefully tie together, and both of those are winners. 3 other Thursday games to talk about. Another conference game here. We already talked about the one conference game in the Big Ten. That's early in the week there with Illinois and Indiana. We've got another one here with Penn State, Purdue right off the bat with conference play, 8 p.m. Eastern. Penn State's a 3.5-point road favorite at Purdue. Model says 4.3. So the model likes laying 3.5 with Penn State. Model would probably be okay even laying 4, knowing that has that push protection. Model thinks Penn State's a lot better team. It's a C-grade pick. I'm giving myself the opportunity to add more later in the week if it drops to 3. 3 is a number I really like to lay with Penn State. It's just not there now. So 3.5 is an okay play, but I just think it's okay. It's not one I'm running to the window to make. I'll lock it in because I think 4 is just as likely as 3. 7's probably more likely than Purdue winning. But it's just 3.5 is just not an exciting number here. It's only a C grade pick for me on Penn State. Total's 53. Cousin Jared, what do you have for us on this one?
So no play for me here. I would have a very difficult time laying the points with Penn State, though. Just looking at their schedule last year in conference games, in their conference wins, they scored 16 points. They scored 24 points. They scored 31 points against Maryland. Maryland's defense,
not
highly questionable, I would say. And then in 28 against Rutgers. I just don't trust Penn State's offense at all, really. And I don't know what Purdue's going to be like this year with losing their top 2 receivers, losing Karlaftis, a really good defensive end. So I've got some questions about them as well. But the thing is, I do have faith in Purdue to put up some reasonable amount of points. And so then, what's Penn State going to do? So no play for me here. I think this is going to be an exciting game. I mean, Penn State has a way of always playing these exciting games. I feel like Purdue always plays really exciting conference games at the beginning of the season as well. So I think it's going to be fun to watch, but for me, it's just going to be fun to watch. No skin in the game on this one.
And let me ask you, let me follow up with that real quick, Jared, because I know that the talk was that Penn State's offense is supposed to get a lot better this year. Part of that, I think, is it's hard to go that much worse. Like, obviously, they could be worse, right? They weren't terrible, but like for Big Ten standards, they were pretty bad, right? Which is kind of saying something. Are you buying into any of that, or are you even optimistic, or are you just like you have no idea? Because I know that's the talk of they've got the talent, it's supposed to be better in offense, and that would help a little bit. Their defense is supposed to be great. I mean, you see the total of 53. The idea is they can kind of slow down Purdue. Yeah. But that offense, it's a question. What do you think they can do better?
So the answer to the question is I don't know. The thing is I feel like we've kind of been saying that they should be improved since like Saquon Barkley and Joe Moorhead left, and we could just kind of keep waiting, and it hasn't happened yet. Yeah. So definitely all the pieces are there, but they've kind of entered the territory where I'm going to have to see like a game or two at least before I just assume that the offense is going to be fixed.
That makes sense. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, there's way too many question marks here because with either team, like you said, Penn State's offense is just a giant question mark, especially with Clifford still there. And then what is Purdue going to be able to do? Like, they're not really going to be able to run the ball that well against this Penn State defense. Is Aiden O'Connell going to be able to make magic happen without David Bell to really draw a lot of attention? So it's just I'm staying away from this one. It's going to be the best game of the night to watch because it should be a really tight game, but there's nothing about the numbers or the prices that's really going to make me excited. And so I'm probably going to stay away from this one no matter what that number does.
Yeah. Two other Thursday games to talk about. And we covered one or two of them already on the first episode. But the other two here we got to talk about. Probably not games you're going to want to watch either. Not as good of games. But we're covering on this episode so that you have a little bit more time to think about them before they happen on Thursday. Louisiana Tech at Missouri. I'm on a B play here with La Tech at plus 19.5, minus 105 odds. I think that this is too many points for Missouri. Model says 16.3. 17 seems like a pretty solid number for this game. 19.5, I'm getting a few extra points. I don't know what to make of Missouri. They were all over the map last year. I don't really know what to make of La Tech either. Missouri's definitely a better team at home, but I mean, it just seems like a lot of points for week one, Thursday night game. If there's still any questions with Missouri's defense, La Tech doesn't have to score that many points, and they should be able to cover this number. But it's obviously not going to be one that's likely to be a competitive game at the end. The only question is how much does Missouri win by? Like I said, I think it's too many points. I think Missouri probably wins a boring game, probably by 14, 17, something like that. But I think 19.5 makes some sense. It's a B grade play for me. Cousin Jared, what do you think?
Missouri new quarterback, what's he going to look like in his first? It's not his first start. I think he started the bowl game against Army last year, but so I think some unknowns with the Missouri offense there. Like you said, this game's not going to be super interesting. I will be interested to see how Louisiana Tech plays throughout the season because historically they were always 7, 8 wins, 9 wins every year, pretty consistent. And then last year they just kind of fell off the cliff, had a pretty bad season, and I believe they hired hired Sonny Cumbie, I believe from Tech. I believe is the new head coach there. So that's going to be interesting. Anytime you can get a former Texas Tech quarterback under Michael Leach as head coach anywhere, it's probably going to produce exciting football. So I'm just hoping that they. You have to assume there'll be an offensive uptick. Nothing else. Exactly. Maybe a defensive downturn, but probably an offensive uptick. Yeah. And so I just hope that they kind of turn around, have a little bit better season, more competitive, and have some fireworks. Hopefully in this game they just do something crazy, and this game ends up being like 63-35 or something like that.
that would be wild.
Yeah.
Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, this is one I'm skipping. I don't know that much about Louisiana Tech, especially with the new coach and everything. So I want to see how that goes. And then I can't trust Missouri to do anything. I could have run 100 yards on that defense at times last year, and that would have taken me 3 days just to run that with nobody else on the field.
That is correct. That is correct. The professor and I watched Vanderbilt run up and down against Missouri last season, and I think I had the under in that game and lost it with like 3 minutes left on like a 75-yard touchdown run. But who remembers those things? Who's keeping track?
I agree that Missouri defense just at times competent, at times just looked unbelievably bad. I think my kind of summary thought on this is I don't necessarily disagree with what either one of you are saying. It's a B pick for me on La Tech with all these points, partially because again, we talked about it previously. I tend to trust the model fairly well early on. It tends to be right more times than wrong, but also early on, and I'll lay a big number with a few teams, with Michigan on episode 1. But in general, I think early on, especially first game, like default looks should probably be dogs. You're probably going to see a handful of these big favorites. You're going to see a handful win by like 50 and cover a big number, but you're going to see probably more covers from these big underdogs than not. Not enough to just blindly take all of them, but I think there's some dogs that make sense here because I think more of these big dogs are going to cover than not. You're just going to remember the one that doesn't because one of these big dogs is going to lose by 60 and it's going to be embarrassing. You just don't know which one it's going to be. Right. But I just think it's too many points. And again, like you said, like you all said, we don't really know a whole lot about either one of these teams other than question marks all around. So give me a ton of points and we'll see if it's quasi interesting, I guess.
Yep.
Another game that,
is being played.
Is happening. New Mexico State and Minnesota. Somebody has to win. I feel like Minnesota has to win this one. 9 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Minnesota's a 36.5 point favorite. I'm taking New Mexico State with 36.5 points. I think it's too many points here. They've got a game under their belt. That helps. I watched that game. We talked about it previously. It was ugly. It's the best word I can use for it, in case there are kids watching. I will say the true freshman quarterback from New Mexico State looked pretty good. He looked amazing for New Mexico State standards. He did make a couple of freshman mistakes. You expect that. He's going to make some mistakes against Minnesota. He is going to throw a couple of interceptions. Absolutely. He looked decent enough and impressed me for a true freshman, especially against the prevent defense that Nevada was using until the very end. I feel like Minnesota's going to be in a prevent defense the entire fourth quarter. I think New Mexico State scores some late points. I don't think they get shut out. I think they score, 14 late, and that's probably enough to cover this. It's just too many points. But New Mexico State is a terrible football team on the road, so I'm not doing any more than a C-grade pick because I don't want – this game could easily be 52-0 at the half, and then I don't want to be that invested in it. I could just go to bed. So only a C-grade pick. I just think it's too many points. Model says it's pretty accurate, but I think I'd probably make this number 35. The fact that we win if it lands 35, I think offers a tiny bit of value. I think you should push at 35. I think 35 is probably actually the most likely outcome in this game, so I'll take 36.5, but only a C-grade pick. Total's 52. Cousin Jared, can you give us a reason to watch this game?
No, unless you just have some very twisted interests. I was doing the math here. I'm going to guess that the team total for New Mexico State ends up around like 7.5 or something like that, and I maybe would take the under on the 7.5.
I think they get to 14. I'm standing by my prediction.
Oh man, I don't know.
At least 10.
Yeah, I don't know. This Minnesota yes, when you get down to the end of the game, who knows who's actually playing for Minnesota, especially early in the season like this. But I think like the first 2.5 or 3 quarters is going to be really difficult for New Mexico State to move the ball. So no, don't watch this.
I would not play under 7.5 if that's what it is. I mean, you have to imagine New Mexico State gets lucky with something, a big play, a turnover.
Yeah.
Their kicker looked good last week. You never know how kickers are at these levels. They get a field goal in the first 2.5 quarters. They get a garbage touchdown. They get to 10 easily, I think. Right. I wouldn't play under 7.5. Under 10.5 maybe, but I think they get to 10.
You see it how you see it. I see it how I see it.
I can't believe we're talking about this. Jake, put us out of our misery.
This is one that I wouldn't watch even if I was a Minnesota fan because only bad things happen.
It's true. It's so true.
There is not a great way to maybe watch the first quarter and then after that just go somewhere else.
Yeah. Or go to bed, go out, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Just nothing good will happen. Not that terrible things are. It's just there's no way that the
there's no upside
out of this because
It's like we talk about anytime your team gets up big, the same thing. It's like, don't stay up late to watch it because like either they're going to win, they were up big, great, or they're going to lose, and you don't want to see that because then that means you just were going to be really pissed off. You just rather see it in the morning, at least have a good night of sleep, you know?
Yeah, you got to go to work the next day in most cases. So just don't go mad. Just go to bed, watch the first quarter, then go to sleep. Go do whatever you got to do.
A few Friday games. We'll cover the rest of them on our third show of the week, but we're going to cover one of them right here. Late game, 10 p.m. Eastern, TCU at Colorado. Earlier in this week for episode 1, this number was at 11.5. Model says 10.5, so I was comfortable taking Colorado at 11.5. I thought it was an okay play, probably would have been a C grade. But as the numbers got up to 13.5, I think it's a wrong. I don't think it's a good move. I don't think this number should be that high. Again, I think 10 or 11 makes a lot more sense. 13.5, pretty solid number here for Colorado. I think it's too many points for the home team. It's a B grade pick for me on the Buffaloes. TCU is a better team. I'm just not sure how much better they are. TCU the last several years has been more mediocre than our brains probably want to remember because we're thinking about the times that TCU's been good. But they've just been kind of a mediocre team. And not that Colorado's been good, but Colorado at home, it's a tougher place to play with the travel being a little bit weirder. Friday night, late night game, Pac-12 after dark type stuff. I mean, 13.5 just seems like too many points. I don't know what the heck's going to happen here. A B grade play, A grade play at 14. I think 14 is way too many. If it gets to 14, I really love that. But at 13.5, it's a B grade play. Total's 55. Cousin Jared, give us something to watch here on this one.
So, what I will say is, A&M went and played Colorado in Denver last year, and that game was really close. I think it was like 10-7, something like that. And so,
ugly game. Yeah,
Colorado definitely has the ability to ugly things up. The problem is as the season went on, they went from uglying things up to just being ugly. Yeah. And so I think that's probably why you're seeing the line movement the way that you have. There's nothing like particularly that strikes me about this game. The only thing that I would say is, and I can't remember his name, but I've heard a lot of things about one of the quarterbacks for TCU. They didn't really think that he was going to be the starter, but he's come in, made a lot of plays during spring ball and during fall camp. So I think TCU is probably going to be rotating some quarterbacks throughout this game, but I've heard some good things. And if TCU can get a dynamic quarterback, then, that's going to solve some of the problems that they've had the past few years.
Yep. Jake.
Yeah, I'm riding Colorado with you. I think it's just too many points. I was leaning towards it when it was 10-11 right there, and then when it jumped back up, I hopped on it. I don't think the new coaching staff at TCU is going to be enough to fix that run D yet, and that's going to do enough to keep Colorado in the game because they've got a good enough secondary to not just get smoked by TCU's receivers. Like they've got a good passing attack, but it's not going to be great enough to just run through this Colorado team. So I think them being able to control the ball, and there's a slight chance if Colorado gets any kind of decent production and non-turnovers out of a quarterback that they might be able to pull off a win here with it being at home because they played better at home towards the end of the year. And TCU played really bad on the road. So kind of leaning that way, but I think plus the points is the play here.
Yeah, Colorado, like I said, tough place to play traveling into the altitude. Baseball. Hey, our baseball picks been continuing to do really well. If Friday baseball picks go well before this game gets going, I'm telling you, drop a half unit on that Colorado money line at massive plus odds. I'm with you, Jake. I don't necessarily think Colorado wins this game, but Pac-12 after dark in the altitude, I don't really know what's going to happen. Because you talked about the game last year. Part of Colorado's struggles as the year went on was they had zero depth. Well, now the depth isn't an issue. Everybody's healthy. Most everybody's healthy coming out of camp. So I think Colorado low total going to ugly this game up. I just, like I said, I think the points are a smart play. TCU probably wins this game by 7 or 10 or something like that. But like I said, I think Colorado's worth a flyer at the crazy plus odds you're going to get on it. But if nothing else, like I said, both Jake and I like getting 13.5. Would love 14, but 13.5 I still think is a great investment. One noon game to talk about in this episode on Saturday, 12 Eastern, NC State at East Carolina. NC State is an 11-point road favorite, total of 54.5. Model says 11.8 for this. I'll take NC State with the B grade pick laying 11. I like the minus 105 odds. East Carolina has been a team that when they're bad, they are really, really bad. And so I just think that there's more ways that this goes wrong for East Carolina, and NC State runs away with this game and makes them look foolish. East Carolina occasionally frisky and hangs in there. So, I mean, it's one of those where I think either East Carolina hangs in there and it's like, whoa, they got a chance to win this, or NC State wins by 24. I'll take my chances with NC State. Like I said, I like the minus 105 odds. I think 11's a little bit too short. I'd probably be going closer to 13 on this number personally. Not really a game that I think will be overall like overly worth watching, other than there's not a lot of noon games, but maybe it stays interesting. I hope it doesn't. I hope NC State runs away with it. I think they can. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
Well, the quarterback for ECU, Holton Ahlers, another guy who's been, I think he's back for his 15th season this year. Here's the thing with ECU. I think ECU is actually going to be a pretty good team this year by AAC standards. Like, I think they're probably the fifth best team in the AAC. Behind Houston, Cincinnati, SMU, and UCF. I think they're probably number 5 there. I'd have them above Memphis. But I know from a wagering perspective, they have been frustrating because in games that they should blow teams out, they've kept it close. And in games where they should get blown out, they find a way to kind of ugly it up and keep it closer than it should be. And I know the thing with NC State is there's been a lot of hype around them this year. Everybody seems to think that they're going to have a really good team, and that could definitely be the case. But it's just one of those things where I see things on both sides that raise some questions. And I feel like NC State, like once every 6 or 7 years, they're supposed to have a really good team, and then it just ends up falling apart. And then they'll have a season where not supposed to be that great, and they'll win 9 games. So I don't really have like a ton of confidence that everybody's saying they're going to have a great season is going to lead to that great season. So nothing here that really sways me one way or the other. But if this game's like close in the fourth quarter, it would not surprise me because ECU usually has a way of playing down or up to their level of competition.
Right. And that's what I said. I think this game is one of two ways. It's either going to be tight late and they might accidentally win the game, or I think NC State just like you said is actually the hype is real, and they're going to go into the road and they're going to dominate. It's going to be a game where they won't be East Carolina has some home fans, but I mean, it'll be still half NC State fans, that sort of thing. Yeah. And they'll just go, they'll dominate, or it's a tight game. And either one of those is for sure on the table. Like we talked about, there's always a way you could lose every single bet you make. The way you lose this one is East Carolina, like you said, uglies it up, hangs in there. But I kind of think NC State is more likely to dominate than that scenario, but I'm like you, I'm not overly confident why it's only a B grade pick. Jake, what's your angle on this one?
Yeah, my first thing is I don't understand why this game was scheduled at ECU. Like, I know it's done way in the future and stuff, but what benefit does that give you for North Carolina State? That seems like all the benefits for East Carolina scheduling this game at ECU. Like, just that's their Super Bowl every year. I would think like going in beating up on Big Brother, like that's everything. But
someone might know it might be a home and home, or it might be sometimes what we've seen schools do is the home, road, and home, where it's like we'll play twice at our place, once at your place. So I don't know. Maybe someone knows exactly what the details are on that, but not ideal. It's kind of like we talked about for years was like the going to Boise thing, where you're like you just didn't want to. No one wanted to do it, right? It's almost the same sort of thing. There's certain games you're like,
This could also be one state school doing another state school a favor because the legislator is buddy with another legislator. Or something
That's true. So. We see that stuff. We're seeing it with the conference realignment stuff with like the Oregon and Washington, state senators trying to do things to keep those teams. So you never know what happens with that stuff.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's just I don't see the benefit for NC State, but whatever. I think they go in and dominate this one. I think the NC State defense is nasty from every level. I think almost to the point where you almost play the under every time they play, especially early on.
Cousin Jared's getting excited.
Yeah.
Just because like they're that good until that number catches up. But I'm riding with NC State minus 11. I think that number is way short. NC State's defense is getting all the hype, and I'm part of the ones that are like saying how great the season's going to be, so it's going to come back to bite me. But the offense isn't bad. Bringing back Leary, they should be able to score tons of points, and with that defense, they should be able to run ECU out of their own field.
All right, we've got a handful of games left. Most of these are big games except for one. That'll be kind of the laugher in all of these, but the rest of these games are all interesting games on Saturday, bigger games. 3:30 Eastern, Oregon at Georgia. Oregon last year, as everyone knows, went into the horseshoe, beats Ohio State handily. A game that the underlying metrics of that game, Oregon didn't quite dominate like the scoreboard indicated, but I mean, they went in there and they hung with Ohio State and got the points when they needed them to. A similarly tall task here, having to play Georgia. This game is one of the games that's in the Georgia Dome I believe, and it's technically a neutral site game. I think I put in the sheet. I put like no because I'm not treating it like it's full home field advantage. I mean, they are going to have to travel a tiny little bit, but I mean it's massively long travel for Oregon. It will be almost all Georgia fans. This is a Georgia home game for the most part. So I think they still should get full home field advantage. They're favored by 17.5 right now. I think a lot of people would jump all over Georgia at 17, myself included. At 17.5, it just, you gotta personally just have a rougher feeling in my stomach on it. Total's 53.5. I still lean Georgia at 17.5. I know what happened last year with Oregon, Ohio State, but I just think this Georgia team is a lot better than Oregon. Only a C grade pick though. Like I said, I just don't love the 17.5. I'm giving myself the opportunity as the week goes along. If it does drop to 17, we can add more on Georgia. But at 17.5, it's a lean. It's just the hook, just not loving it. But I think Georgia's a much better team than Oregon. Yeah. I don't know. Cousin Jared, what do you think?
Well, first of all, pour one out for you calling us Georgia Dome. It's pretty sure the Georgia Dome's been gone.
It's like the Mercedes-Benz Dome.
Yeah. So
did the Astros still play in the Astrodome? I'm pretty sure they do, right?
Yeah. Well, the Astrodome's still there, but that's going to be like the fourth solo podcast. Is what's going to happen with the Astrodome.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'll let y'all talk about the side. The total here, 53.5. Like, I was like thinking to myself, like, what are the scenarios that could possibly play out in this game regarding the total? And it was like, I said to myself, okay, maybe like, 21-34, that would make the game go over. But just, I want to kind of hear what y'all think on this. Does 34-21 sound like too many points to y'all in this game?
How does Oregon score 21 on that defense?
Okay, that was my first reaction too, as I was thinking about it. Like, that does sound like too many points. I think
it's not impossible. Anything can happen in sports. There's no locks in gambling, right? All those things. It would have to take a big plays that Georgia doesn't usually allow. It would have to take turnovers. It would have to take punt returns. But Georgia's good on special teams too. It would have to take things that would surprise me to get to 21. I think 13 is more reasonable, where they might move the ball a little bit, get one touchdown, a couple of field goals. Like I could see 13, maybe 17. 21 just seems like.
D coordinator as their head coach, so maybe there's a slight advantage there, and Bo Nix isn't unfamiliar, so maybe I like there's too many things that have to go right for them to get to 21.
Yeah, it's not impossible. Just things, everything has to go right for them. I feel like a lot of things multiple things that I'd be surprised would have to happen, as opposed to like one of those things. Absolutely, it's football, right? But like, yeah. I'd have to have a lot of things go weird for me to feel like 21 seems possible.
Yeah, so I agree. Lanning being there does make me wonder, will they have some brief advantage at the beginning of the game because maybe he knows like what Bennett's weaknesses are or something that he can exploit with the Georgia offense maybe. I don't see Bo Nix being a big difference maker in this game. I mean, like there are some teams where the Bo Nix experience can make a difference. Against Georgia, it is not one of those.
I think a lot of the Pac-12, I think it can, because some of those Pac-12 defenses with a couple holes like Bo Nix, obviously you never know what you're going to get. We talk about him a lot. Yeah, could lead really awry, but obviously like he could just shred a couple of those teams, but I don't think he's going to shred Georgia.
Yeah. So if this game were to go over, I'm actually kind of on the other side of it. I think that after the national championship game, Stetson Bennett's like, I'm the biggest badass in this room, and he's just coming out and slinging it around, and Georgia opens up their offense a little bit. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. They probably won't. But I'm saying I have more faith in Georgia to score a lot of points probably than I do Oregon. It would cause this to go over. Anyway, all of this is a really long way to say I have no official play right now, but the longer I look at this total, the more ways I see it going under than going over. So like I've said before, stay with us all week. All of our shows, watch us on Twitter, watch us on BetStamp. Maybe this is something I play later in the week, because the more I think about it, the more the under is appealing.
Yeah, I think we didn't talk a ton about Georgia in the SEC season preview, but I have a lot of questions about Stetson Bennett. I think the Heisman Trophy is on the table. I think falling apart and being very mediocre is on the table. I think anything is on the table after what the national championship. Like I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm glued to my seat watching Georgia. Just if nothing else, at the beginning, it's just see what they do with him, because like I said, I think there's very few things that could happen that I'd be like, that's surprising. I'd be like, almost anything. I'd be like, okay, that checks. Like, I don't know what to make. Jake, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, right now I'm not making a play. I really want Georgia at 17. That half is killing me. But I mean, I know this Georgia defense is like lost a lot, But when you start looking at it, they're bringing some of the key players back. Ringo in the secondary, still bringing him back, who made the final interception. They kind of put the national championship away. You've got Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter still playing with Stackhouse, and then a whole host of running backs that are just going to run through people. And then you got Brock Bowers, and a lot of that offensive line is back. This is like, I don't understand this. It's so hard right here because I want the 17 just because I don't know what I'm going to get out of Oregon, and they showed flashes. Like even after beating Ohio State, they dropped Stanford in overtime, and then the only other two losses they had were Utah. So it's
Utah.
Yeah. So I mean, like they showed flashes of being good, and they've got the talent. They probably upgraded a bit, especially on the defensive side, bringing in Georgia's D coordinator. I can't ever remember his name. So like, it's just a lot of unknown. But I think I'm more than likely to take Georgia as the week goes on. I'll probably talk myself into it, but right now I'm staying away unless it goes under 17 or under 17 and a half.
Yeah, I have two more things to say. We'll move on. Number one, I think that Georgia's entire second string defense last year would have been better than all but about 5 defenses in the country.
Yeah.
Second thing I'll say is I hate saying stuff like this, and I'm going to do it anyway because I open myself up to looking like a fool. But hey, I open myself up putting myself on the show to look like a fool. That's what happens, right? I feel, and I don't have any data to back this up, but this feels like a game that the hook might not matter. It feels like a game that the hook doesn't matter. And I'm with you. I really want 17 more as well. And we're kind of obsessing over this number. I'm not sure we should. It's trying to fight the impulse of like trying to be smart and responsible and follow our rules and follow our, what we know works and that sort of stuff. But I'm wondering if the hook really matters here. This feels like a game that either Oregon's going to hang in there accidentally and we're all going to be really surprised, and maybe they win or maybe they lose close, but it feels like a game that either Oregon hangs in there or Georgia's up 35-0 at the half and we're like, boy. I'm opening myself up to look like a moron here, but I just don't know if the hook really matters. And so like I said, I'm kind of fighting that with myself as well. I think there's more ways that Georgia just kicks the crap out of them. Oregon hangs around and like they lose by 7 or they win close. And we're like, wow, good job, Oregon. And we're all obsessing over the hook and like, you're going to lose either way. It doesn't really matter on that scenario,
Yeah. And I have to say one more thing, because I'm going to mention this every time we talk about Oregon and every time we talk about Cal this year. Why did Justin Wilcox turn down the Oregon job? I have no idea. And I will bring this up on every show until I guess I'm tired of it. I don't think we'll ever get an answer. But
maybe someone will post it. Maybe someone post in the comment if you know why. Yeah. We talked about it in the preview. We were all like,
maybe the pressure.
Maybe so. Maybe he didn't want to live the lifestyle of like a high profile coach like that at a school that has big
Oregon's
expectations.
High profile like USC.
Expectations. There's higher expectations. Yes, probably not like high profile. Like
maybe he hates the color green.
That would
maybe
also,
he doesn't
or
like
yellow. Or maybe he's an Adidas guy.
Cal's lots of yellow. Yeah, maybe he's an Adidas. Yeah, doesn't like Nike. Anyway, moving on. The other game at that time slot that really interesting: Cincinnati and Arkansas, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Arkansas is a 6.5 point favorite. Model says it should be Arkansas minus 2.5. Model thinks these two teams are about equal on a neutral field. I'm all over Cincinnati at 6.5. A-grade play for me. I have no idea if the model's right on this. Like I said, I generally just trust the model on these things. I think Arkansas is going to be good. I think Cincinnati is going to be good. The question you have with Cincinnati, and the thing you have to ask yourself is, what the heck was last year? Because they started amazing and looked every bit as much of a top 4 team. And I'm not just talking about, we also talk about when we get to the playoff, the resume, right? And what they've done on the field and that sort of stuff. But I'm talking about they actually look like a top 4 talent team, like they deserve to be there. And then they had a stretch where they look like they might go 500 in conference, and they barely won some of those games. And then they get to the playoff, and I mean, they did as well as any 3 or 4 seed has done, other than like 1 or 2 in the history of the playoff. I mean, they got beat pretty bad, but I mean, they hung in there pretty well in that game. I don't know what you're going to get from Cincinnati necessarily. They lost a few pieces, of course, but I think they've got a lot of guys stepping in. I still think they're going to be pretty good. I think Arkansas will be pretty good. I think this is going to be a fascinating game. I think it's an under the radar game. I think people are talking more about some of the big games. I think we get to the end of the season, and this game could be the difference between one of these teams getting to 10 wins or 11 wins or something crazy like that. Obviously less for Arkansas, tougher schedule, but I think both these teams are really good. I'm taking the 6.5 for Cincinnati. I think they can hang in there. Maybe they lose by 7, but I think they can hang in there. easily lose by a field goal, easily lose by 6, easily lose by 4, easily get this game to overtime, and a lot of those are good for me. So a great play for me on Cincinnati. Total's 52. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
Man, Cincinnati just lost so many players on that defense from last year. I want to say that the Cincinnati defense may have set the record for like most players drafted off one unit from a non-Power 5 team or something like that. They lost a lot of people there. But the thing is, you turn around on the Arkansas side, like, don't get me wrong. I picked Arkansas when they played Texas last year. Mm-hmm. I was very proud of myself for that. Arkansas just push Texas around in that game. The problem is, as the season went on, that was hit or miss. Some games they would do that, and some games they would have problems. Obviously, a SEC schedule makes that a little more difficult. The other thing
hold on. What I'll stop you right there. Just, we always go back and look at things in the season. We always look back and we say, sometimes it's like, oh, that was confusing, but it makes sense now. And we look back and we say, that was kind of confusing, but that was kind of a weird game, that Texas-Arkansas game. And I feel like it really threw our perceptions off of both of those teams. Not that Texas was good. It's just, that type of game and the way that played out stylistically wasn't as predictive as we thought it would be going forward. It was a very weird game. And like you said, then Arkansas later on not being able to do that all the time, but sometimes doing it perfectly. It was a very weird setup in hindsight looking back on that.
Yeah. And the other thing with Arkansas is they lost Burks, who was their best receiver last year. And there were games where his presence didn't matter, kind of like the Texas game. Mm-hmm. But then there were games against like A&M where A&M could literally not move the ball at all. And they were still hung in that game. And the only reason they lost was because Burks had a couple of big plays. And so I also have some questions about the Arkansas offense. So
he was a big part of that bowl game. The whole was he going to play or not was a huge part of line movement for their bowl game, because everyone knew he was like their whole offense.
Exactly. So I'm not brave enough to pick a side here. I think if Arkansas puts it together and all the people that Cincinnati lost, you could see Arkansas covering this line. But looking at the total here, I mean, I don't know who's going to score a lot of points in this game. Yeah. I mean, I have faith that Fickell's defense will be solid if nothing else. And with the offense, Cincinnati put up a lot of points last year, but so much of that is they just had the ball so often because their defense was constantly giving it back to them.
Great field position.
So no play on this side here, but the more I look at this total, especially 52 is a key number. Mm-hmm. If I had a lean, that would be one way. So again, stick with us the rest of the week. Maybe this is something I make a play on later.
I saw 52 and I was a little surprised you didn't jump on 52 for fear that it goes to 51. 51 also a key number as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Jake?
I'm on Arkansas here. I'm going against the model. It'll come back and bite me, I'm sure. But I think that defense lost so much. And I mean, the part that scares me is giving a good, maybe even great coach Fickell with almost a full year to prepare for this game is very scary. And he'll have everything ready to go. But I don't think Desmond Ridder is that easy to replace. He did a lot and made a lot of big plays. And Alec Pierce is gone also, and that was a really big.
But look out on the sidelines for his younger brother Resmond Fritter might be making an appearance in this one.
Hey, it would be huge.
It would be huge. It would be huge if they could bring him.
But then like you're losing Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner on the defensive side. I think Cincinnati will be one of the teams at the end of the year. Everybody's like, they're very, very good. I just don't think it hits its stride week one. This is tough on the road. Like, part of the reason I like Arkansas is it's at home. They're bringing back almost, I think, every lineman. And Pittman did a great job hiring his 2 coordinators, and they're all in their 3rd year. So everybody should know exactly what it is. KJ Jefferson, I think they had 4 500-yard rushers last year, and KJ Jefferson was one of them. And I think they got 2 they lost 1 running back, so they bring back 3 500-yard rushers. Jefferson also hit around 68% of his passes. So if he gets around close to that number, like I know it's probably going to go down losing the receiver, but I think there's more ways Arkansas wins this by a touchdown than Cincinnati covers it.
I think and this is where I guess we disagree. I think there's more ways Arkansas wins than Cincinnati wins, but I think there's a lot of ways Arkansas wins this close. It's just my take on it. I think, and part of my belief on this, and Jake, you might disagree with me, and this is where I think you got to ask yourself, viewer, how you feel about this. And Jared, you talked about it, losing all those pieces on defense. I have faith in Luke Fickell. I think that you never really know when you replace those pieces exactly what's going to happen. You have a little bit of an idea sometimes when they come in and play some reps. But, I mean, it's just a whole different – then now being the starter and all the off-season stuff, you just don't really know. But, I mean, I have faith that he's going to have this defense at one minor step back from where they were last year, not a massive step back. I think they will be pretty dang good. I have faith in him to figure this out. I think their offense will take a small step back too. I think Cincinnati's not going to be as good as last year, but I think it's going to be small steps back. I have faith in him with what he can do, retooling that team. That's, I think, where my faith comes from in this, and that's why I think they can hang in there. If you disagree with that, then I think you agree with Jake, and you say that 6.5 is okay, because if they take a medium step back with some of those pieces being out, then I'm with you. I think Arkansas makes more sense here. So I think that's kind of the question you have to ask yourself: how much of a step back is Cincinnati going to take? I have faith in Luke Fickell. If you have less faith, then I think Arkansas makes sense for you.
Yeah, I just think this Arkansas defense is kind of a little bit underrated, and they've got one of the best names in the world at linebacker with Bumper Pool.
Yes.
It's
just fantastic.
It's just an incredible name. So I mean, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. I love that. I just don't think he's got enough talent yet. Like, I think they're building the program, and I think Fickell's getting it there. But there's a reason the Power 5 or the non-Power 5 schools have a really hard time keeping up year after year after year. It's just so hard to find that talent. Yep. And I don't know if Cincinnati has all that talent ready to go right now. I think a couple of years from now, they may be back to the playoffs just because Fickell does such a great job developing the talent. I just don't know if that's there yet.
Yeah. We're going to move on from this one, but one last thing I'll say here is that I gave Cousin Jared a lot of crap last week. He loved the UNT under. Didn't make it a 2-unit play. I berated him for it off show on text. Yeah. I was like, dude, you love this. Why is this not a 2-unit play? And that was an easy under. Cousin Jared, if our next show, if you're not playing this under 52, I'm going to berate you on this one. I feel like this is your jam.
Okay.
I don't understand it. I don't understand why you're not taking the under.
Yeah.
Well, look into it and convince me why you shouldn't take the under on our next show. Because otherwise I feel like this is your play right here.
Yeah. For something about a dead horse, so we'll move on.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about this later.
Exactly. Saturday, 5:30 Eastern, the one of the Saturday games we're talking about here that's probably not going to make your TV screen. Texas State at Nevada. The reason we're talking about it today is this line was 3.5. Or for our first show, Nevada was favored at home, basically saying these two teams are about equal, maybe a slight edge to Nevada with home field. Now it's down to a pick 'em. I love Nevada at a pick 'em. I want to lock it in now. A great play for me. It's minus 105. So it's basically like even money for them to win at home against a Texas State team that isn't bad for sure. But the model says it should be Nevada minus 7. The model knows that Nevada was bad. Like we talked about from week 1, me picking them against New Mexico State. The model had Nevada very, very low in its ratings. It's not like it thinks that Nevada is going to be good. It's just at home. I think a pick 'em is way too much to pass up on. Nevada is going to get better as the season goes along with all the young players. They have that game under their belt, which matters a lot here for all the new players they're playing. The quarterback that they play in the second half, tall guy who runs the ball a little bit more. I think that gives them a little bit of a different wrinkle offensively. Again, I don't think this Nevada team's good, but I think at home, I think they can get the job done against a Texas State team that I'm not sure is going to have the ability to score. Not that Nevada should have really covered against New Mexico State. Part of that was turnovers. Part of that's New Mexico State's not a bad team, but I think Nevada having that game under their belt just matters a lot. They can, do the little things. They can win this game at home. I don't understand why this line's a pick 'em again. Model says 7. That's probably still a little bit too high. But again, the model doesn't like Nevada. It just also doesn't like Texas State. A great pay for me on Nevada. Total 51.5. Cousin Jared, do you have any insight for us on this one?
What I would say on this one is this goes back to what I said during last week's show that I was on, where I said that I don't like making picks or I'm going to feel like an idiot as soon as I make them. And so this is one where I feel like if I picked a side, I'd feel like an idiot. The thing with, I don't know if Texas State is that good. They haven't been that great the past few seasons. I'm honestly surprised that Jake Spavital got another season after everything that he's been through there. He just hasn't been able to turn it around. I don't have much faith that he will turn around. I'm not saying that he can't. It's just one of those things where it's been so many years of the same that I kind of just expect the same this season.
Let me interject with that too. Model ranks Texas State 122nd out of 131 teams.
Yeah. When you said that Texas State wasn't too bad, I was like, I don't know. I think they're pretty bad.
Sorry, I meant yes. What I meant to say was they're obviously bad. I was trying to imply they weren't like at the New Mexico State level, UConn, UMass level.
Hawaii
level. They weren't at that level too bad,
correct.
but I mean, they're obviously a very, very bad team.
Yes,
they're in that.
Yes,
they're not in that bottom group. Sorry, definitely misspoke. I guess.
Yes, yeah. So, but the problem is that I did watch Nevada. Somebody corrected me. Yeah, somebody corrected me in the comments with my pronunciation. I'm going to say it wrong like half the time.
It's also we talk about. It's also Boise, right? Not Boise, right? So there's another thing to.
Basically. So anyway, the problem is that I've watched Nevada play a game, and Nevada wasn't very good in that game against New Mexico State. They did nothing to inspire any confidence. So I completely I'm good with your pick. I understand why that we're playing Nevada here, but the thing is that I would just feel like a complete idiot if Texas State gets up 10-0 in the first quarter, and I would be like, why did I think that playing Nevada was a good idea after looking at what they did against New Mexico State? So this is a complete stay away for me.
Jake. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Jared. This is one watch is not the right word. I guess read into after.
Check out the box score after the next morning.
Yeah, because Nevada scared Nevada. Screwed it. Absolutely scared me with the New Mexico State because I thought New Mexico State was just garbage, and then that first half happened, and I was like, oh no. So this is another one I'm gonna stay away from just because I want to see what they do before I start playing them. I mean, I get why you're picking them, but I don't know.
I have two more things to say, and we'll move on because this obviously is a game that should be getting a lot of airtime. But I think there's two things to point out here. Number one, we talked about it earlier in our first episode. I'm going to be fascinated to watch this game and the Minnesota-New Mexico State game, not because they're going to be good football, but to try to figure out more about these two teams because that was a very surprising result. Not that Nevada won by what they did. That was probably what we expected. It's just the way that it happened and the fact that Nevada needed a floppity billion turnovers to get that result was surprising. And how much of that is New Mexico State maybe one day has a pulse, quarterback again looks competent, or does New Mexico State go out and lose by 60 to Minnesota? In Nevada here in this game, how they look, if they get run by Texas State at home, that just tells us both these teams are actually really bottom two teams, and we didn't realize it, but what we were seeing was maybe the worst college football game of the season in week 0. If Nevada wins this game handily, New Mexico State has maybe again they're not as bad, and it was just we thought that New Mexico State was going to be really really bad, and so when Nevada played down at their level, we thought, but really it's New Mexico State still bad, but maybe not quite bottom feeder level. A lot to discern here. I think it'll be really fascinating to see. My overall thought on this game: Texas State again, 122nd out of 131. Pick them in Nevada. If you really think that Texas State's going to go in there and win this game, and I'm not saying they can't, anything happens. I'm saying if you talk about they play this game 100 times, and if you think that Texas State wins this game 50 of those 100 times or more, what you're telling me basically is that you have Nevada on the same level or barely ahead of Hawaii, New Mexico State, UConn, UMass, those teams. That's just hard for me to swallow. That's why I said it's an A-grade pick for me. I'm not saying that's not true. It might actually be true. Like I always say, there's always a way you could lose bets. Always got to be thinking about that. If you think Nevada might be at that level, you probably don't agree with this pick, and that's totally fine. But I just think that Nevada is still going to be better than that. And I think that one game they have under their belt really matters. That's why I love Nevada here. I'm locking in a pick them here at minus 105. If Nevada wins this game by 30, I'm just going to laugh a lot because they look so bad the first game. I'm not sure they can score 30 points, but that's a whole other story. Yeah. Moving on back to good football, Utah and Florida, 7 p.m. Eastern. Should be a great matchup here. Model on this one says that Utah should be a 1-point road favorite. They are 3-point road favorites in the Swamp. The model loves Utah. The model loved Utah last year. The model thinks that Florida is going to be competent this year. I'm not sure about that. I like that I'm getting a field goal. So it's a B grade pick for me on Florida just because I'm getting a field goal. Because honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. And I've heard people say in the comments sometimes like, well, how are you making a pick if you don't know what's going to happen? I'm like, because the price matters. Like me getting a field goal, I don't know what's going to happen. Like Florida might win this game and they might lose by 3 and then I push. Or it might be a weird, sometimes teams win by 1 or 2, right? Like getting the field goal I think matters here. It's a bigger pick for me on Florida. I love Utah, but going on the road in week 1, I have no idea. I think Utah is going to be good. I think they're a better team than Florida. But traveling across the country, playing in a place that should be pretty raucous. Florida's crowds have been questionable when they've not been good, but this crowd should be a sellout, raucous night crowd. I mean, it should be the best home environment of the year, unless they win 10 games, that sort of thing, and get Alabama at 7 p.m. or whatever, right? It should be a great atmosphere, tough place to play. I'll take the field goal with Florida. I don't know what's going to happen. I like getting 3 points here. I love Utah. I loved Utah last year, but I'm just not sure they should be 3-point road favorites here in a game that should be a fun game to watch. But again, don't know what's going to happen. Total's 51. Cousin Jared, key number 51.
Yeah, it is
the under. You're taking the under?
No, I'm not taking the under here. I do want to add, not to get us sidetracked on conditional probabilities again, but is there a more key? I'm genuinely just curious. Is there a more key number in sports besides 3 in football?
No.
Like I know it's more valuable in NFL than
1 in hockey. One in soccer.
Okay. Well, there you go. So
maybe one in baseball. No, I mean, we talk about point spread sports being football and basketball. Yeah. Are there any other point spread sports that matter? No totals and things. Yeah, I mean, 3 in football is the number.
Okay, there you go. So I am not fading Utah after how they finished last season and even how they played in the bowl game against Ohio State, where, we know Ohio State's defense wasn't that good. They were missing some players in that game, but, Utah just went up and down the field. So I am not fading Utah in this spot. The problem is I'm also not playing Utah because you mentioned it. It's going to be I think a crazy crowd there at the Swamp, and it's going to be hot and humid. And it is going to be just just thinking about having pads on and like being out there in that heat, humidity and everything sounds pretty miserable. So I think it's just gonna be a tough atmosphere for Utah. I think it's gonna be a great game. I can't wait to watch. There's a lot of optimism around Florida, which seems crazy to say after how terribly they played the last half of last season. It's going to be good to see some excitement there again. Richardson could be amazing, could be meh. Who really knows? I think it's going to be a fun game.
And I'll just add real quick with the home field. We have some close friends who live in Salt Lake City. It's a beautiful place. The weather is amazing this time of year. It's nice and cool, and that's not going to be what Florida's like. I mean, the travel across the country and the temperatures. I mean, they're not going to be used to this. I don't know. What do you do to prep for this? You find an indoor place, crank up the heater. Did they? Crank up the heater at pumping humidity or something. I don't even know how you did it. It's I mean, you can't prep for this type of game. I mean, there's a reason why. There's a reason why we talk about in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins having a better home field advantage here in that first month of September home games, and why they wear white jerseys, because that they wear colored jerseys later, but they wear those white jerseys, those hot and humid games. They have that big advantage. It's the same thing here. It's going to be a massive home field advantage for Florida. Like I said, I love Utah. It's just the elements I think really matter in this game. Jake, you're on Utah. What's that side of the story look like?
Yeah, I am super high on this Utah team. I'm actually putting 2 units on this one. I think Utah gets it done.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm really going for it. I think bringing Rising back for his 20th year, he's going to leave with like
hopping around a couple different places too.
Yeah. But I mean, he's bringing back 5 of his top 6 pass catchers. All of the offensive line and his leading rusher. The offense just completely reloaded. He went 9-2 after he took over as a starter. I mean, the defense is rock solid. They did lose a couple pieces, but they brought in a Florida transfer, so maybe he's told them how to deal with the elements.
The Trojan horse.
Yeah. Yeah. But I really think there is so much to be happy about with this Utah team. I think they are a potential playoff team way up there, because I think their schedule works out for them for that. But we went into that in the season preview. And I'm just not sold on Anthony Richardson. I think he is much closer to meh than woohoo. And he's also not bringing a lot of pass catchers back with him. I think there was a total of like 60 catches that came back.
How many passes were caught last year in general is the fair question.
They don't have a tight end that had a catch on the roster anymore. Wow. Or from like returning. I can't remember what they brought in through the transfer portal, but I just like when you've got a quarterback that's very questionable like that, and also he's questionable healthy wise too, but having nobody to help him out is not a way to figure it out, especially against a really good defense that, like with that Utah has. And I just think this game, I think, will be closer to Utah like 10 to like 14 than it will be to the 3.
Yeah. Because Jared, we go.
I was going to say, can we like get a little disclaimer like that he is a Tennessee fan, and so we need to be careful anything that he says about Florida.
Very valid point. Very great added point there by you, cousin Jared. I will add, I also love Utah like Jake does. I'm excited to back them. I'm excited to back them when they're not traveling across the country playing in a stadium like that in those weather conditions. So, I mean, that's just kind of my thought on it. Yeah. I will say also to cousin Jared, to your point, you're always talking about which games will make you look like a fool. This one high on that ranking list of the games this week could easily make anybody on either side look like a fool.
I'll probably just stick my foot in my mouth by putting 2 units on this one. So
it's like, but I really think after the first quarter, I'm the most likely scenario for the first quarter. It's like it's tied, right? Obviously, and that's what we're hoping for. Hoping for a really good game. We love watching good football games, but it's not that inconceivable for Utah to be up 14-0 after the first quarter, and all of us to be like, how did we not see that Florida is still garbage?
Yeah.
Or it's not inconceivable for Florida to be at 14-0 and us be like, traveling across the country, playing in these conditions. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, this happens every year where like, you don't think about, either one of those is absolutely on the table. So, high likelihood of looking like a fool on this game either way, but it should be a fun one. 3 is a key number, something to think about, especially as that number comes on and off of 3, shop around. If it gets to 3.5, also a totally different story there. If you get the hook with Florida. So things to keep an eye on there for that one. The other Saturday night game, 7:30 Eastern, Notre Dame and Ohio State. All the hype in the world around this one. Notre Dame, guys, can y'all remember another time? Notre Dame's ranked what, 4th, 5th?
No clue.
Something like that. Can y'all remember a time that a team's been ranked like that and week 1 is 17.5 point underdogs? I mean, it kind of blows my mind.
I would counter that with saying I can't remember the last time where coming into the season the top 3 teams were just so clearly like so far ahead of everybody else. And so that's not really an answer to your question, but I feel like clearly this year we have 3 like amazing teams and then a rest like a bunch of just solid teams.
And you see that in the power rankings there on the sheet, the same sort of thing. I mean, there's a clear divide between those top 3 teams. And you see it with there's some weird props out there you can bet where it's like betting one of those 3 teams to win the national championship. And it's like some crazy minus odds, which at this point of the season, I would say that's a stupid bet usually. But like this year, it's like, I kind of get it. Like, how do you, it's like one of those 3 teams is probably going to win, right? I mean, it's almost assuredly 3 of the 4 playoff teams unless something weird happens, right? Notre Dame might be really fading out of prominence. I mean, there's a realistic chance we look back 10 years from now and we say, how many years now has Notre Dame been mediocre, slowly losing it, right? But I mean, there's also a chance that Notre Dame always hangs around there. I don't want to say it's a crossroads season, but for me, Notre Dame here being ranked like this is a big question mark of can they put together another good season and really put their staple on we are still a blue blood in college football, or is this going to be another disappointing year where Notre Dame seems to have more years than not, more hype than deserved? A lot of questions. I think it'll be really fascinating. New head coach, the players love. What does that matter? Who knows? We talked about Notre Dame on the season preview. I think, it's a tough schedule for them. Obviously starts off really tough, a game that they're not supposed to win, playing in the horseshoe. Like you said, Cousin Jared, against one of those top 3 teams that is light years better than the other 128 teams in college football. Model says as good as Ohio State is and has that clear separation, Model says this should be Ohio State minus 13. I'm on Notre Dame plus 17.5 with a B grade pick. It's an A grade edge. I'm only giving it a B grade pick because I don't want to look like a fool and have 3 units on this one Saturday night and Ohio State be up 35-3 at the half, because that is absolutely on the table that this game is a runaway. I like getting the hook. Again, Model says that Notre Dame nowhere near as good as Ohio State, but should it be this big of a number? But as we talked about, dog barking again when I'm on another big dog. It makes sense. We talked about last year a lot with some of these bigger favorites, these top teams, these outliers. The model has a hard time at knowing exactly how far ahead to put them. And Ohio State, Bama, and Clemson are absolutely going to be in that boat. So it's definitely a question of how much should Ohio State be favored by? I think it's by a little bit too much. I'm going to take the 17.5 with Notre Dame. It's a B grade pick, but again, A grade edge. Just not A grade confidence level for me. Totals 59. A lot of totals here, right on some key numbers, floating right around some of these key numbers. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
I don't really have much to say about this game other than that does seem like too many points. But the problem is that I'm worried that Ohio State's just going to be a buzzsaw this year, especially that offense. Man, that offense can be good. What I would tell people to keep in mind is in the Urban Meyer years, the offense would stagnate because it seemed like Meyer just had this thing with like, I'm going to run my quarterback into the ground. Sometimes I don't want to open things up. I really want to establish the running game. And then he would do crazy things like the Michigan State game in whatever year it was, where Ezekiel Elliott touched the ball like 2 times in the second half. It made absolutely no sense. So I don't think Ryan Day has any of those limitations offensively that some of the Urban Meyer teams would have had. So maybe that's just something to keep in mind as we go throughout the season. I'm worried Ohio State's going to be a buzzsaw, at least with Alabama and Georgia. The most likely scenario is those 2 teams play each other, so at least there'll be some kind of challenge for them at some point. I don't know where you find the challenge for Ohio State on the schedule. Of course, it's the Big Ten. Any team could pop up and give them a good game.
Michigan.
But
Michigan State will be decent.
Michigan State, maybe that's always a good one. Penn State always plays them close. But Michigan, I'm afraid that they are going to demolish Michigan after what happened
last year.
I think it's just going to be.
I'm not sure. Does anybody in the state of Ohio remember that? I mean,
Yeah.
No one's thinking about that.
Yeah. So,
and anyway. I mean that jokingly, but also there probably was enough alcohol consumed. I'm not sure many people in the state do remember that after that night.
That is true. Anyway, so no play for me on this game. I just think that Ohio State's gonna be really good this year. That's all I have to say.
Jake.
Yeah, I'm not playing anything, but there's tons of questions that I can't wait to get answers to. Like, how does Marcus Freeman do on the big stage? Like, can he do it? Do they have enough on the offensive line? Like, or to just like keep this going? Can they like keep their QB on their feet? And can he keep pace with the Ohio State offense? Because I mean, it's going to be a shootout type pace anytime that Ohio State takes the field. I mean, and then did Ohio State do enough on defense to allow them to win big games? Because that was part of their thing. Because any of those big games Ohio State played last year, their defense just kind of let them down. And as good as the offense was, they just couldn't finish it out. So I mean, there's a lot of questions that will be answered. And Ohio State will either be a really big favorite for winning the title after they blow through Notre Dame here, or there's going to be a lot of questions and people hyping up that Michigan game a little bit more, because if that defense is rough, then that Michigan game becomes all important.
Absolutely. Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, Clemson at Georgia Tech, another game that is a neutral site game. Talked about this on episode 1 with the LSU game. I'm giving Georgia Tech half home field advantage here. I think it will be more Clemson fans than Georgia Tech fans. It's not about the fans. It's about the travel. Georgia Tech doesn't play at that stadium, but they play right there. And so they're sleeping in their standard hotel. The travel's a lot less. Clemson having to travel. I'm giving Georgia Tech a small home field advantage for this, but half of what I normally would give, because again, I think it'll be mostly Clemson fans there in the Mercedes-Benz Dome.
There we go.
Monday night, where they get to sell their Chick-fil-A there, right? Because they don't get to sell they'll get to sell their Chick-fil-A for both these games. They don't on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
So big catch there, right? If you're if you're in that area, that's something that you enjoy. Model says this should be Clemson minus 24.2. I think 24 is the right number for this. I'll take Clemson minus 22. It's a B grade pick. I think it's a little short. I wish it was 21. I'd love to give you some 21. I'd love to get 20. 22. I'm on Clemson. I think it's more likely that Clemson runs away with this than not. But it's only a B grade pick. I just don't see Georgia Tech scoring. We talked about last year, Clemson. Talked a lot about Clemson last year. We had a whole segment on Clemson. By the end of the year, I was figuring out Clemson, and I had them down pretty well. I think what happened with Clemson is their offense stagnated. They lacked the pass option out of the backfield. They lacked a running game. I don't think people realized just how big Etienne was to them, and that hurt their offense. When they finally got the running game going a little bit, didn't have to be a lot. That's when their offense was competent and their defense was still really good. And I think the same thing here. I'm not sure how good their offense is going to be, but I just really don't see Georgia Tech scoring many points. I mean, that defense is still going to be amazing. It seems like every single year at Clemson. I would probably be looking at Georgia Tech's team total under here. I think it's a big number. I'm not sure if Clemson scores 28, 35, 42, whatever, but I just think their defense can dominate this game. If Georgia Tech scores 3 or 7, it wouldn't shock me whatsoever. So I'll be on Clemson. Total's pretty low at 48.5. Odds makers kind of think like I do that Georgia Tech won't score many points. I'm right in that Clemson defense here. I've got Clemson. Should we just talk about Clemson here? I've got Clemson 4th in the power ratings. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sold that they're the 4th best team. Of course, who is the 4th best team this year?
Exactly. Yeah.
My opinion is Utah, but
oh man, Jake's got takes. I like it.
Jake's got takes. I love Utah, but that's too high for me. Maybe Michigan, maybe I don't know because they played good last year, but I don't know. I mean, it's wide open who the 4th best team is, and I've got us Clemson. So I mean, I'm higher on them than most people. I'm not sure they're going to compete with those top 3 teams, but I still think they're a very good football team with an elite defense. I think the defense is going to generate some points or some good field position for them. I'll lay the 22. I don't think Georgia Tech's very good. Cousin Jared, what do you got for us?
Yeah, who cares about Georgia Tech? Yeah, Clemson. I'm just watching this game. Georgia Tech's defense was not good last year, but if Clemson can get to like 34, 38 points or something in this game, then a lot of my concerns about them will be quelled, because you mentioned that defense being really good. If they can just have a fine offense. Like at times last year, it was really bad. If they just
when their offense was mediocre, Clemson looks really good. They just got to be decent.
Exactly. So that's like all I'm looking for in this game is, can Clemson's offense just be serviceable? And if so, then I think they probably do deserve that fourth ranking. But man, it was just so many things happened last year. They had so many games where they looked bad it's just really hard for me to come out thinking that's exactly how well that's how well their season is going to go. So
they have an entire offseason to address those issues, and a serviceable offense should score lots of points against Georgia Tech.
Yeah. So let's see what happens. I just want to see some offense from Clemson.
Yeah, totally fair. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm curious. How short do you think the leash is on DJ?
Very.
I would say between medium and short.
Yeah, like I think
medium.
Medium. I think it's like mid third quarter. If this game is tight, I think it could be this first game if he doesn't look good.
That's my opinion on it. If he doesn't, because he just did not look confident ever. And so if he
whole offseason to fix that.
I think
I don't know why I'm a Clemson optimist now, but I am.
I think that's Dabo's opinion too. Hey, we've worked on this all offseason. If you don't show it here, we've got
does he just not need to know that he's going to start? Well, no, I guess did he the game that he started against Notre Dame a couple of years ago when Lawrence had COVID? Yeah. Did he know he was starting that game? Like, how far in advance did he know he was starting?
I think it was like, you're probably going to start, but they were kept like testing to see. I think it's
he didn't. That was that the one where the first game he didn't know he was going to start until like that day. I think the week was the week before that. He didn't know until like that day against like the week before against like Wake Forest or somebody against Boston College. And then it was the whole week would he be able to test negative?
Well,
I think it was questionable all week, right?
Well, no. Notre Dame was the first game that he
started. Oh, was it flipped? So was it flipped then?
Yeah, it was a flip thing.
It was when he played the net. Okay.
He threw
it was right away.
He threw for over 400 yards against Notre Dame in South Bend. Like, Notre Dame is a good defense. So anyway, it's just the whole thing is just like almost inexplicable how he could look so good against a good team like that on the road. And then last season,
I'm telling you, having that running back he was getting 10 yards a pop, basically running and can catch the ball. How many of those passing yards were just negative 2-yard passes to him, and he runs for 50 yards? I mean, I'm not saying that DJ isn't a good quarterback. I'm just saying like that guy made that offense go, and there were, I kind of wondered about that in the offseason coming to last year. I was like, I wonder how, because his numbers were insane. Like, I don't know why he didn't get more Heisman buzz with what he did for that team. And sure enough, I think they just lost without him. So I mean, I think part of it's that, but. Yeah, DJ still should be a good quarterback without him.
Yeah, exactly.
That one Notre Dame game got him the Fansville commercial.
That is true.
I mean, and no one can ever take that away from him. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty legit.
That's money in the pocket.
I would love to have a Fansville commercial. Dr. Pepper, if you're watching, hit me up.
Dr. Pepper, I'll do it for free. I don't care. Just give me some Dr. Pepper Zero. And that's all.
But I mean, besides that, I mean, the defense is just absolutely elite, and it's like, but replacing both coordinators is going to be tough. So there might be a little bit of questionable stuff at the beginning. So I think it's tight in the first half and then explodes in the second half. I think Clemson gets it done. I'd play this up to 23, but if they don't do this, if they don't beat this Georgia Tech team by like double digits, it's a scary year, because there's some decent teams in the ACC this year with Miami and NC State, Wake Forest. If the quarterback, whenever he comes back, I don't know what's going on there. It's some medical stuff, but it's not going to be super easy. And if the offense isn't playing well in this game against this terrible Georgia Tech team, it's going to be a tough year for Clemson.
Yeah, they need to stop them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All righty, we're calling this a 2-minute drill. I don't know how many minutes it'll take. Cousin Jared, picks you are adding that you did not make last episode. Give them to us.
Yeah, so I got a couple of things here I want to discuss. The first thing is we mentioned during the West Virginia Pitt game, I might be on West Virginia there. I've talked myself out of that, so no play on the Pitt West Virginia game.
It's up to 8 now, right?
Yeah, it is up to 8 now, but I've talked myself out of that, so no play there. I'm adding Boise State +3. Note, you're gonna have to lay a little bit of extra juice there. That's gonna be -120. I have faith in Andy Avalos coming up with a good defensive plan for Boise State in that game. I said it in regards to the total there that I might look at the over. I think that Oregon State's defense isn't going to be wonderful. So I trust Boise State to come out with a good defensive game plan, and I think they can score enough points against that Oregon State defense. And like I said, getting the 3 points there in a game where anything could happen seems good. So adding Boise State +3. I'm also adding LSU. That went down to -2.5. You're laying a bunch of juice there at the -120, but the -2.5 very valuable there. What I would say about LSU, it just – two things. Number one, LSU playing a game in New Orleans. It just feels like that's going to be a massive advantage for them. The other thing I would say is that Brian Kelly made a living at Notre Dame, literally his entire living by just winning the games he was supposed to win. If he was favored in that game, you could almost lock it in that Notre Dame was going to win. So I'm going to assume that carries over to LSU here playing in New Orleans. I think it's going to be a big, crazy crowd for LSU. So I'm locking in LSU -2.5, laying juice there too at -120.
Question about Brian Kelly.
Sure.
The Brian Kelly that won those big games, was that Irish Brian Kelly or Cajun Brian Kelly though?
Or was it another Brian Kelly? Was it the Yooper, the Michigan Brian Kelly? I don't know.
Which one was it?
Wasn't he in Central Michigan for a while? So anyway, or was that Rich Jones? I don't know. I lose track. I don't know which one it was. Cincinnati Brian Kelly. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
if you missed that, there's a good YouTube video of someone splicing together him adding accents of where he is, and it's hilarious. So if y'all haven't seen that, go check that out.
It obviously works. Obviously
worked. People love it.
Exactly. And so we've had the last thing I'm going to add here is we have had our first incident of me being talked into a play during the show here. I am adding the under 52 in the Cincinnati Arkansas game.
I love it.
I feel like that we've had good success when I've been on the edge of a play, and then I've had two other people tell me I need to be on the under in this game. I feel like that usually, if they can eyeball it, then clearly they're seeing something that kind of confirms what I was thinking. So I'm adding the under 52 as an official play at Cincinnati and Arkansas. If it goes awry, it's y'all's fault.
There you go. And I think you're right. And it doesn't,
somebody to blame. Always.
Yeah, exactly. There's no locks in gambling, people, right? But this did tend to work well last year with either just me and cousin Jared or when Jack was on with us. So, what he's indicating is just like when he's outlining these cases and we're like, you're total, like this is 100%, and we're like, no, like you should do this, like you've laid it out, and I agree. I think this is your spot here for that under. So I'm glad you're taking that one.
Okay, there we go.
Jake, 2 minutes. Joe, you got some picks to make from games we talked about previously, so you have a few more here. What are you adding on?
Yeah, so all right, we're just gonna like most of it. There's nothing more to say than what was already said. But I'll put episode 1 there. If you haven't seen it, episode 1, we already talked about it. Yep. So I'm taking the over in the Pittsburgh West Virginia game. I don't think there's a defense that's going to be on that field that can stop either of those quarterbacks and offenses. So over 51.5 is super nice. Obviously, Oklahoma State is a very good team. Illinois.
So you're taking Oklahoma State. The number's up to 21, but you're still laying the 21 with Oklahoma State.
Yes, yeah. I think that gets worse than what it'll end up being. Like Illinois +3. Is it still +3?
Still +3.
Yeah. So I'm taking that one.
I think Illinois and I think Boise State at +3. I think getting the field goal is great. I split the bet between +3 and the money line. I think money lines of both of those make a lot of sense.
That's exactly where I was going. It's like I'm probably going to be laying on the money line too. I'm not sure why this line is where it's at. I think this should be flip flopped. I'm taking Middle Tennessee. You all laid that out perfect, and I think that number actually got better or worse for me. But
it's down to 5.5.
I'm jumping on Coastal. I think there's way too many things that Army has to have go right to stay this close to Coastal at -2. And
I can't say
McCall is still there.
Grayson McCall. Yeah, I can't say anything. I'll talk for 10 minutes on that game. So we got to save that for the next show.
Hey, we'll save that for next show. We haven't talked about it. So Coastal Carolina, get a preview for that next episode.
I'm taking South Carolina, taking a chance here. I think Spencer Rattler's got it. I think that offense will be a lot better. Their defense was a little bit underrated. I know the run defense was terrible, but I think if that steps up at all, they should be able to get this. Jumping on Tulsa. Then once again,
that's gone from 5 to 6.5, and that was another one that I said. Model says 7.5, and I said I wanted to get that. Hopefully, I already got that in. I said, hey, I want this at 5. I want this before it goes up to 6 or 7. Model says 7.5. It's already up to 6.5. Yep. Because we talked about that. Like, people are going to be like, "Oh, Wyoming's terrible." I think they are. So I think we talk about moves all the time. A lot, sometimes they don't mean anything. Sometimes they're the wrong direction. I think this moves the right direction here for Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. The note I have written for this game is Wyoming is bad.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's pretty good analysis.
Yep. Jumping on the under for Alabama, Utah State, because I mean, do we think Alabama walk-ons are as good as Connecticut? Because that's where it's going to end up being. Because Utah State, what they showed against UConn was terrible, and I mean, you're looking at absolutely high-powered first and second string.
I'm curious to see, Cousin Jared, we can talk about this. We haven't talked about the Alabama game yet. I'm really curious to see if the trend of teams playing poorly the week after they play Alabama holds. So I'm not really excited to watch this game. I'm excited to see what Utah State does in their next game after this to see if they get beat up too much.
Yeah. I mean, it's at 62.5. 90 for that to go over 90% of that's going to have to be Alabama. I don't think. Right. Yeah. I think they're going to be pulling people early. Bryce Young might play 2.5 quarters, maybe. I'm taking Mississippi State in a revenge game. I think they're very angry. I think Memphis is bad. That kick return that wasn't a kick return, that whole craziness. I think Will Rogers is just going to put up stupid numbers in this game.
Jared, I don't remember specifically, but I'm assuming that you took the under in a game involving Memphis and they broke your heart. Was that one of those games?
I don't remember it. I know I lost a bet on that game. I may have been on Mississippi State there. Okay. I can't remember, but yes, I do remember I lost that game for some stupid reason.
Because you lost every Memphis game for a stupid reason. I feel like.
Yes, I did. That is accurate.
After that Mississippi State win that shouldn't have been, they went like 3-6 or something like that. I think they were 3-0 after that, and then finished the year 6-6.
And they hit the over like 4 times in the last 3 minutes of a game or something.
And all of them like needing 21 points in the last 5 minutes or something crazy.
Yeah.
All right, Jake, what else you got?
I'm riding with Jared here with Houston. We both spoke a lot with him in the season previews, throwing 2 units on that one too with him.
That's up to 4.5. Yeah, unfortunately there.
Yeah, I think this is a touchdown or more game for Houston. But jumping on with Western Kentucky and LSU minus 2.5. I think New Orleans, the last time they played there, I think was the championship game, and they just ran through it. I think it's going to be very similar.
All right. That's a lot of games. We have more games to cover. In episode 3, we're going to round out every game this week. Cousin Jared, any parting words?
Nope. Stick with us the rest of the week. You'll get to hear us talk more.
Jake, any parting words from you?
Yeah, just any of the future games that haven't been covered yet. If I make a play, just check the sheet, bet stamp. That's it.
All righty. Well, that's all we have for you here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder to check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link in the show's description and at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. Cousin Jared and I'll be back for episode 3 later in the week. And until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.